You there, Paul?
Connected.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I was checking to see if you were there. I am up on StreamYard and Facebook. You can bring Pastor Williams on it just after 6.
Try to make sure people
Okay.
So we can check for sound. Thank you.
Real U.S. history, just because we're worried about them learning about slavery. They got to learn about slavery. They got to learn about real U.S. history and the real truth of this nation, including the good parts and including the tough and bad parts. That's a little bit of notion of hope. Normally we do Thank You Thursday. Only had a couple days, so we dealt with what was in the news, and we dealt with how we're going to deal with the current sort of national challenge, and being reminded right after Trump. It was odd timing, right? The couple of days that I was invited, odd timing. The day after, we have the jury find Donald Trump liable, and then the very night that Donald Trump has given an infomercial
Paul?
by CNN, right? And I had the privilege of...
Paul, I'm going to add Dr. Malvo for 7 o'clock.
On Thursday, we do Thank You Thursday.
Okay.
The thing I'll be thankful for is y'all.
And you'll have to try her more than once. She's in California.
To be able to hear from
Okay.
gave us the wonderful Charles Bukowski line, which is, what matters most is how you walk through the fire. I'm honored to be able to walk through the fire with you and figure out how we do it. From Lisa, the wonderful quote, you can't control the wind, but you can control the sail. You can decide how you operate, what you decide to do in your local community, whether it's working campaign finance reform, which I hope you will, publicly financed elections and transparent private elections and private contributions. I hope that you will. Mostly, what I just want to say is thank you. You are the coalition of the benevolently irrational, the good people doing good things for no good reason. Without you, democracy's got not much of a chance, but with you, we got a heck of a chance. I appreciate you. Tom will be back with you tomorrow. I'm Jeff Smith. From me and George Bailey, the Puggle, we appreciate you. Be well.
You've been listening to Tom Hartman. For audio and video archives, visit tomhartman.com.
Oh, Paul, could you add 2 minutes, please?
Angie's List.
Okay.
Thank you.
Angie, your home for everything home. With 20 plus years of experience combined with new tools to simplify the process, Angie makes completing home projects easy. They'll be there with you from your first repair to your first renovation project to the work you do before selling your home. Back before we bought our new house, we had lots to do before selling the old house we lived in. Angie was there for us, from handy people to painting. Angie is a personal home expert, having served 150 million consumers to date. Angie provides new digital tools and innovative solutions to make it easier than ever to get anything you need for your home done right. They understand the difficulties that can come with home projects, so they make tackling home service projects from start to finish easy. Angie has projects that are priced upfront and clearly lays out the cost before you buy. Download the free Angie mobile app today or visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. Angie.com.
Hi, friends.
The David Pac-Man Show.
One of the claims that's often used to say the border is open is you will hear things like, we're catching so many people at the border because Biden opened it. If we are catching people, if we are stopping people, if we are taking people into custody, by definition, the border is not open.
The David Pac-Man Show, weekday evenings at 10 on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
At the YMCA, finding your why starts by making an impact together, touching lives for the better. It can be the gift of time or treasure, supporting a community through talent without measure. Here, compassion fuels commitment, finding fulfillment through enrichment, serving and improving. What a way to live, and what a gift it is to give. Find your why and get involved today at ymca.org for a better us.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Migrants at the border are trying to figure out how best to get into the U.S. now that Title 42 has expired. The AP's Donna Warder.
In Matamoros, Mexico, desperate migrants are trying to enter the U.S. They're crossing the Rio Grande, carrying children and their belongings above the water. U.S. authorities shouted for the migrants to turn back, telling them it's too dangerous. Title 42, which allowed border officials to quickly return asylum seekers back over the border during the pandemic, has now expired. But a new system asks asylum seekers to stop coming across the border and start using an online system to book appointments to ask for asylum. Meanwhile, a federal judge has temporarily blocked the administration's attempt to release migrants more quickly when Border Patrol holding stations are full. And on a border.
U.S. Marine Corps veteran Daniel Penny is expected to surrender to authorities today on a manslaughter charge. He's accused in the chokehold death of an agitated fellow passenger on a New York City subway. This weekend's Eurovision Song Contest will have Ukrainian flags, Ukrainian musicians, and Ukrainian fans, but not Ukraine's President Zelensky.
Zelensky had been expected to use a video address on Saturday to urge the world to continue.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you so much.
Good.
Doing so well. Just
And just
pulling.
then, China
You
is
know
sending
me.
a special envoy to Ukraine and Russia starting
Pulling stuff, girl. Look. The news, we're in the 24-hour news cycle now. So I don't, I'm already
Now to Bubbles.
in bed most nights truly by 11, and I'm up at 2.
Which give champagne and sparkling
And then I've started doing a few other
It's all about the flavor
TV shows early in the morning.
Champagne happen to be
And, you have to do what you have to do.
Researcher and physicist Professor Roberta
Right.
at
You have
Rhode
to do what you
Island's
have to
Brown
do.
University says flavor molecules allow bubbles to rise smoothly.
There
up to
is
the top.
that.
something within champagne.
And I'm going to start talking about it. I just wanted to solidify these relationships first
Bubbles in beer.
before I start talking about that. But how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm hanging in there. I'm doing well. Thank you.
All right. Hang.
Understand physics in the natural world, like how methane and carbon dioxide molecules
Hang.
the oceans.
Hang.
And I'm Rita Foley. AP News.
8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs.
Y'all got a lot going on up in New York.
Worldwide, WCPT 820.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Y'all got a lot going on. You have a homicide
WCPT 820 weather update.
and no murderer.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm
Man.
meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see if
But you know
showers
what?
and thunderstorms here for today. With
I think so much of the graft and corruption that we've known about
tonight, a chance for
is just becoming clear. You know?
By Saturday, a slight chance for rain
That's
early
just-
on, cloudy high 72 degrees.
It is what it is.
And by Sunday, a chance for rain showers and thunderstorms, cloudy with a high around 65. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, high 69. How long does it take to tackle a home project? With Angie, you could cross it off your list before this ad is over. Just tell us what you need, indoor or outdoor, repair or redesign, and we handle the rest, sending a top pro to get it done. You don't have to lift a finger, except to tap the screen or click the mouse. Plus, Angie is free to use. So bring us your next home project, and we'll bring it home. Download the app or go to Angie.com. That's ANGI.com to get started.
This is your WCPT Progressive Calendar. Tuesday, May 16th at 11:30 a.m. Join the Union Club of Chicago for a conversation with 11th Ward Alderwoman Nicole Lee, the first Chinese American and only the second Asian American to serve on the Chicago City Council. The event will take place at the Union League Club of Chicago, 65 West Jackson Boulevard in Chicago. Thursday, May 18th at 5:30.
How much time do we have, Paul? Can you hear, Pastor Williams?
Yeah, everything sounds good, and we are 4 minutes away.
Okay, thank you.
Tina Jackson and Sayira Rao. The 2022 film examines the harmful and often dangerous effects of white women's complicity in upholding white supremacy. Tickets are $35 and seating is limited. If you'd like to list your event or sponsor WCPT's Progressive Calendar, send an email to
Okay, Paul, I'm going to send you
I'm Smokey Bear.
Dr. Malveau's number, and you should call her
Because only you
at
prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear.
For the 7 o'clock.
Because I'm grilling.
Okay.
Did you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
And just keep trying her until you reach her.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Hi, I'm Marcel Spears. Keeping our global neighborhood safe is a tough job, one made just a bit safer with the help of America's brave military dogs. These dogs, who often take the same risks and make the same sacrifices as our human warriors, keep our troops safe by sniffing out bombs and IEDs, locating enemy positions.
The first number that I sent you is the best number for her.
To an almost
Okay? That's the number you should
when
call.
these brave K-9 heroes retire, they're not always given the same treatment as our military VIPs. Not too often left overseas. American Humane works to bring home these valiant dogs and reunite them with the people who mean the most to them, their handlers, so they can enjoy happy, healthy, well-deserved retirements. To learn how you can help America's four-footed heroes, visit AmericanHumane.org.
This is a WCPT 820.
Okay, did
and Signal
Matt
News
told you
and
I'm going to be
Charlie
recording
Walker
until
CNN's
8:30,
Daytime
yes?
Town Hall with Don.
No, he didn't tell me.
Okay.
We got 1 minute.
Okay, I'm going to be recording until 8:30
urging House
because I'm
Republicans
actually
in that town
pre-recording
hall
a show
event
for
to
Monday.
force a default on the
What
nation's
we're doing
debt.
today will be played on Monday.
25% of the nation's
So am I recording you?
Yes, you're recording the show, as you do, right? But it's,
Okay.
you're going to record until 8:30.
I guess I'm confused because we switched to another show at 8. So am I just recording?
Would you call him and clear that up?
Yeah, let's get going since
No, of
we're
course.
here in 15 seconds. But yeah, I got 2 hours to figure this out.
Okay, perfect.
how dangerous this group of extreme MAGA Republicans have become.
For WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal, I'm Andy Miles.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, May 12th, 2023. It's a joy to be with you today. We've got a lot to talk about on Monday. We are going to have a new mayor in the city of Chicago. What does that mean? So today we're going to look forward and we're also going to look back. We're going to look back at Mayor Lightfoot's legacy. And I want to know what you thought or what you're thinking about what she accomplished. I want to know what you're thinking about what he aspires to do. And of course, that's my trust. You all give me a call. Let me know what you want to name my printer. You know I love that girl. She just keeps on working no matter what. But we've got a lot of things to be talking about. And so what I'm going to be doing on Monday, I'm going to be at the inauguration, thankfully. And so we're going to, a lot of the show that you hear today, you will also hear on Monday. We wanted to make it more of an evergreen show. And I want to include as many of your thoughts as we can. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. You know, it's kind of funny. I heard someone talking about someone who supported Mr. Vallis, and Mr. Vallis, for his portion, has been very gracious as he conceded this race to Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. You know, he is moving forward, moving on. Campaigns are tough. And this person was saying that, well, I don't know how he's going to pay for everything. Look, it was like, wait a minute, hon. All the things that both candidates were talking about meant that a lot of checks were going to need to be cashed, right? I mean, a lot of things are going to have to happen, a lot of things. So, you know, so what's going to happen now? I mean, these urban mayors are being asked to accomplish much, much, much more with far, far, far less. So tell me what you think about what you want Brandon Johnson to do as mayor, what you think he's going to be able to do, what you're going to need to do to help him to make this project work. And then I want you to tell me about what you think of what Mayor Lightfoot accomplished, what she did well, what she didn't do so well. I mean, and you keep on living, you're going to get your opportunity to be criticized too. I think she did a fine job, but I think she just had a tough time. She was pugnacious, and I don't think we're accustomed to women, yes, pushing and fighting, as she's had to do all of her life. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278 and let me know what you are thinking. Today, Title 42 has expired. This pandemic-era policy now cast uncertainty over the U.S. border. It had enabled the swift removal of migrants as it ended. The Biden administration warned of tough penalties for illegal crossings, and now the chokehold killing of Jordan Neely is on the front page. Daniel Penny, who will be charged in the subway chokehold killing of Neely, he will not be charged with homicide, although the coroners determined that it was a homicide. It was a murder, but they're saying no, he's going to be charged with something else, second-degree manslaughter. He's expected to appear in Manhattan criminal court today. What do you think about that, everybody? What do you think about that? Should he be charged with murder? Do you think he meant to kill him, or was he simply trying to restrain him? 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 70 degrees. It will be rainy. It looks really cloudy right now. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 75 degrees, rainy. In the NBA, the Celtics and the 76ers are tied in their series. The Celtics were able to save themselves last night, 95-85 over the 76ers. Tonight, we're going to be watching the Heat versus the Knicks. Oh, the Heat are leading that series 3-2. Will they close it out? The Warriors will be playing the Lakers. Will they close it out? They are leading that series. The Lakers are 3-2. The Nuggets 125. The Suns 100. Denver closed it out, everybody. In the NHL, in overtime, Denver fell to the Hurricanes 3-2. The Stars 5. The Kraken 2. Dallas leads that series 3-2. The Panthers will be playing the Maple Leafs tonight in Major League Baseball. The Twins 5. The Padres 3. Tonight, the Cubs will be playing the Twins. Yay! I love it. I love it. The Royals 4, the White Sox 3, and the Astros will be facing off against the Sox tonight. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. You know, I've got one of my favorite people in the world right here, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. You've got to get her book. I see you, sis. I see you, sis. That's right. You can get it on Amazon. You got to get it. It's going to bless you, as she blesses us every Friday. It's so good to hear the pastor of the First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good morning. Good morning. It's always a joy to hear you, and certainly always a joy to be on with you.
Oh, thank you. And to hear my trusted Hilda. I don't know what I'm going to name her. My printer. Bless your heart. She works hard for no money. There you go. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Well, tell me, what's the good news?
Well, today I want to acknowledge mothers. First, I want to start by saying Happy Mother's Day to every mother figure, to those who are would-be mothers, to those who are new mothers, to those who are working toward motherhood or aspire to it one day. Happy Mother's Day. One thing I've come to understand is that Mother's Day is not necessarily happy for everyone. And given everything that's happening in the world today, with all of the grief and the mourning we're experiencing, you just mentioned the Neely family, considering all of those things, I want to talk about a recipe for recovery. We know how to do rejoicing really well, but I wonder if we know how to recover well. When life is not sweet, when life is not going the way that you plan, how do we recover from those life events? And I say a recipe because I don't know about you, but I do cook. I can cook. I just don't cook much, Santita.
Thank you. Yes.
And I can't cook. I just don't cook a lot. I don't cook often, but when I do, I will say it is a small window and a short season.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I love for sure is I love a simple recipe. I love something that I can get done in 30 minutes or less. And in the book of Psalm, this is where we get the recipe for recovery. Psalm 61, 1 through 4 says, "Hear my cry, O God, listen to my prayer. From the end of the earth I will cry to you. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. For you have been a shelter for me, a strong tower from the enemy. I will abide in your tabernacle forever. I will trust in the shelter of your wings." A recipe for recovery. Everybody likes a simple recipe. Doesn't require a lot of ingredients or preparation, and the simpler the recipe, the better. And when we talk about having a recipe for recovery, I have to tap into my inner Rachel Ray. Because the great thing about this recipe is it doesn't require any special measurements. It doesn't have a concrete cooking time. It takes as long as it takes. And you likely have all the ingredients you need already. Here's the recipe for recovery. 1 part crying, 1 part praying, 1 part trusting. I'm going to give it to you again. 1 part crying, 1 part praying, 1 part trusting. When we examine this psalm, it's clear it was written by someone who was bearing the burden of being brokenhearted. They were in pain. They were in deep grief. They were experiencing a tremendous transition in life that was bringing them great hurt. Grief is the intense emotional experience triggered by loss, and it doesn't have to be death, as in loss. It could be the loss of a job. It could be the loss of your individual self. It could be a loss of your faith. It could be the loss of a material asset. And it's interesting because the word grief has its roots in the Latin word gravis, which translates to mean a heavy burden. But here the psalmist says, "Hear my cry, O God." The first step to repair, the first step to recovery is to cry. You can cry out to God. Now, everyone doesn't grieve in the same way, but to cry out means that you express what's on your heart. This is why I love the book of Lamentations. The book of Lamentations, written by the prophet Jeremiah, is one big book of crying, one big book of saying, "God, I don't understand this. What part of the game is this? This is not what you promised me." But aren't you glad to know today that the psalmist says, "From the ends of the earth, I will cry to you." Meaning it's not just that you cry, but you can cry from anywhere. You can cry from the front seat of your car. You can cry on your job. You can cry on the train. You can cry in church. Anywhere you need to cry out and express what you're feeling, you can do that. That's 1 part crying, 1 part praying. We have the luxury of prayer. You can ask God to strengthen you while you cope with the loss of a loved one. You can ask God to strengthen you while you deal with the loss of resources. You can ask God to strengthen your resolve while you cope with the loss of a relationship. 1 part crying, 1 part praying. And here's the most important ingredient in this recipe: 1 part trusting. And it's probably the most difficult ingredient to work with. Because when you trust someone, it means that you believe the person is reliable. You're confident in their strengths and their abilities. Listen, we trust the bank to keep our money straight. We trust the restaurant to be up to code and prepare our food. We've got to trust God in the same way that we trust all of our daily conveniences. You can trust God with your broken heart. Because when you look back over your life, you'll see that God has healed it many, many times. This is not the first time you've lost a job. This is not the first time you've sacrificed some happiness. This is not the first time you've lost a battle. But God promises to give us the victory. Now, the scar may remain, but the gaping wound will be healed. Now, here's the most important thing. You can cry, you can pray, and you can trust, but you can't tell God how to heal you. I remember when I was young, and you can probably remember this too, Santita, when my mother was in the kitchen cooking, and I would get underfoot doing something I had no business, and she would say, "Girl, don't you make my cake fall. As a matter of fact, go sit down somewhere." I can hear God saying to us right now, God is cooking. God is working on something special for you. Now, you can tell God what you need. You can tell God what you want. But what you can't tell God is how to make it for you. You cannot tell God how to do it. I can hear God in the spirit right now telling somebody, go sit down somewhere. I have got this under control. I don't care where you sit. I don't care what you do, but just go sit down somewhere and let me work. Let me put everything together, because I heard all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord. Now, none of us would just consume 1 cup of flour on its own. None of us would just drink 6 eggs unless you're Rocky. None of us would take a sip of vanilla extract for no reason, and none of us would just ingest a whole cup of oil. But when you put all of those things together, they work out to be a delicious recipe. All things work together for the good of those that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. So be sure to cry, be sure to pray, be sure to trust, and be sure to get out of the way and let God do what God does best. And that is the recipe for recovery. Have a great one.
That is the good news. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And and thank you for the reminder about Mother's Day. You do know the origins of Mother's Day. It was, the same person who wrote the lyrics to the Battle Hymn of the Republic, Julia Ward Howe, really started Mother's Day. She came out of the Civil War, which was the deadliest war on our soil. It's something that we have not even really finished fighting, in the more than 150 years since it was ended. It turns out mothers on both sides, in the North and the South, were caring for soldiers from the North and the South because they prayed that someone, if my northern son went to the South and was shot, I hope some Southern mother will think as a mother and take care of my child. And I hope that Southern mother said, I hope some Northern mother will think as a mother and take care of my child. And so she came out of this wanting to end all war for all time. And she said, and the only people who are going to do it are women. She said, there's something about carrying a child in your body and then sending them off to war to unlearn all of the great Christian virtues that I taught them. I didn't teach my child to kill, but that's what they have to do in war. I didn't teach them to do the things that they have to do in war. And so we need to end this. And so she had the Mother's Day proclamation for peace. And she wanted to, she was an abolitionist, she was a feminist, she was a womanist, she was a poet. She was a woman of her time and ahead of her time, trying to move us into all time. And she wrote, Pastor Williams, "Arise then, women of this day," just a few excerpts. "Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage, the blood of others," everybody, "for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, women of one country, will be too tender to those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs." So she continued, "From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence vindicate possession, as men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil. At the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council." In other words, we all need to come together and meet. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them then solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own kind the sacred impress not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. This is from 1870. This is from 1870. Mother's Day is not about all of these flowers and all of these things that we keep talking about. All of these people have perverted Mother's Day as they've perverted Easter and Christmas and all of the great holidays. This is about peace. So as we fight wars and as we fight wars with each other about how we think and what we believe, let us begin to come together and decide that no one should be hungry. Let us come together and decide that no one should be without decent shelter. Let us come together and decide that everyone has a right to the tree of life. Everybody, let's do that. So I want to thank you for that, because I'm one of those people who can cook but doesn't like to do it. If I can do it in 20 minutes or fewer, I'm happy. So I love you, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams. How can we worship with you?
Yes, worship with us every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. And also, if you're in the Bridgehampton or the Hamptons area, please come and visit us.
And don't worry, I'll send on that poem to you. I know that's a sermon for you.
Please. Yes, please. Yes, please.
First time I presented it to my father, it blew his mind. He went, I said, Dad, this is a holiday for abolitionists. An abolitionist was also a peace activist. Whew.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Shanita Knighton, you know, one of the things as we think of peace, people don't realize the devastation. I only have a couple of minutes here, and I want to bring you on for a couple of minutes on the other side. We have these weapons of war on the streets now. And it makes me think of Mamie Till Mobley, who did something very brave. She let the world see what had happened to her son. She said, no, 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 no. This is what happens in a lynching. This is what's happened to thousands of black people every month that we've been here. So I want you to see it. And with this latest shooting down in Texas, this gentleman reached down to touch this young girl's pulse to see if she was living. And he felt no pulse, but, you know, he said, you know, maybe if I turn her over, maybe I can compress her chest. And when he turned her over, he saw that she had no face. Because the bullet had ripped off her face. I think we need to understand what these weapons do and what they do to us. What they do to us. And so, you know, Dr. Knighton, I know as a nurse you have seen some things. When we get on the other side, I want you just for a couple of minutes to talk to us about just about being safe. About being safe. That's really what it is in this Mother's Day, and she's a mother of 3, bless her heart, having broken a cycle herself with her wonderful husband and her beautiful children, beautiful family. But let's talk about this today. Think about that. Did you know that Mother's Day is really a Mother's Day for peace? It is a holiday in which people are celebrating, or really pushing for the end of war. Yeah, that's right. Think about that, everybody. Call me at 773-763-9278. And then, hey, I got a new sponsor. In addition to Team Hochberg, as they are helping you to save your homes, I got Megan Financial. They are looking to become financial advisors to people who are working class, who are functionally poor, who are middle class. Yeah, you don't have to have high net worth in order to set up a comfortable retirement plan for yourself. This is what they want to do, and they want to do it for you, and they're going to use this show to do it. So everybody call me. Let's talk about Mayor Lightfoot, her legacy, what you want to see from Mayor Brandon Johnson. Hey, what you voted for in February and April, it's going to be true on Monday, so what are we going to do? Call me at 773-763-9278. Got a lot to talk about on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a minute. Dr. Knighton, I just saw that you were there just a little bit late. So when we get on the other side, you can...
I actually enjoyed the lesson about Mother's Day. I ain't gonna lie. I just learned some stuff I didn't even know in regards to the significance of it.
Isn't it amazing? And when you hear her poem, it's life-changing, you know? She's saying, no. And this is the woman who wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Stop. Wow. And she said, no more war. And all women, I don't care what country you are from, what your color is, what your religion is, I don't care what it is. But we're going to end war. And we're the ones to do it. I'm not going to send my child off to war to unlearn everything I taught him about being kind to people, about not hurting people. I'm going to do that, and so when you see that, and so every year we do on Keep Hope Alive, Mother's Day for Peace. That's what we do. That's what we talk about, because I think we need to revive the original meaning of the holiday, just as we need to do that for Easter and Christmas and all the great holidays. So happy Mother's Day. You know, I mean, it's just.
You know what I like in this, and I know we talking about Mother's Day, but I think what I found so interesting,
Reverend Wilson's on the line.
learning about like New Year's, you know, and like that meaning, you know, Heartbreak Day, because that was the day in which slave trades were made, you know, and so. Yeah, so it is surprising when you learn about why you do it. And I will tell you that my oldest now, he'll be 17 this year. And so my husband and I have not celebrated a New Year's without our kids. So it's always been done.
It's a family
to
holiday.
signify like that. Exactly, yep.
But you know
Grab a
what?
bond.
You know what the other side of that is? The Emancipation Proclamation was signed and it was to go into effect January 1st. So our enslaved ancestors,
Attorney Connolly's on the line.
thank you so much, went to churches or stayed in their cabins or whatever, wherever, and they prayed all night that Lincoln would not change his mind and rescind the proclamation. So that's why we have to put I'm not going to ask anyone else to do it. We have to claim and reclaim the meaning of January 1st for Black people in America and ultimately for America, because America could not be free until we were. You know, that's why, you know, Aaron and Reverend Wilson, as we talk about the farm workers, the original migrant workers were Black people. I get it. It's just we were not paid. And so their struggle, they're much further along in their struggle, Aaron and Reverend Wilson and Pastor Williams, if you're still there, and Dr. Knighton, than we were. Because first you had to end slavery. So these horrifying conditions they got to deal with, you can only imagine what they were under slavery. But this is what we do to people, period. I'm not going to say your blues ain't like mine. Just we mistreat people. And when President Biden, Aaron, in this interview last weekend, Dr. Knighton and Reverend Wilson, when he said just in passing, but we need our farm workers. So you need people. You're right, we do need farm workers, and you need to honor them with a livable wage. They need to be able to go to the restroom somewhere so they don't have to urinate and defecate in the fields. And then you want to call them nasty
back in
people.
15.
Okay, did we get Dwight?
No answer from him yet.
Okay, just keep trying. Thanks so much. So, Dr. Knighton, I'm going to give you 4 minutes. You can talk about health however you want to do it as we're going into this Mother's Day weekend.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, May 12th, 2023. Whoa, goodness gracious, excuse me. And we have got a new mayor as of Monday. But now we're looking at the legacy of Mayor Lightfoot. She's going out like a lioness. And we're looking at, you know, her accomplishments. And we're also looking at the aspirations of Mayor Brandon Johnson. So what will be her legacy? What did she do well? What could she have done better? I think, you know, and there are lessons to be learned for everybody in all of these situations. But she did some things extremely well, and she was faced with something very, very few in our history are faced with, a pandemic that shut the whole country down. You try to figure out how people are going to eat, how kids are going to eat, how they're going to learn. I mean, she didn't expect to bump into COVID. Are you kidding me? So how do you do that? And look at how how that pandemic and locking us down, how it changed who we are and how we are. Now think about that. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. And before we start talking about the mayor, and we will have a new mayor on Monday. I'll be at the inauguration along with WCPT. That will be streaming it live. I want to know, and we're going to be rebroadcasting this show on Monday because I want you to, as we go into this new era let's also talk about what we've experienced. I think we should learn from all of these previous administrations so that we can make improvements as we move forward. Dr. Knighton, as we start this process, what do you want us to know about our health now that the COVID emergency is over, but COVID is still here? It's here.
You are absolutely right. It's crazy, Santita, because it does come down to, unfortunately, this being the era of the haves and the have-nots, meaning that testing will still be available through insurance. You have vaccines that still will be free through insurance. You have resources that will be provided. However, unfortunately, we're going into an era where it may and will not be done in an equitable manner, whereas before, access to everyone was one of the key things as they talked about COVID. Unfortunately, one of the things that does concern me, and I know we talk about this already, is just having equity and access when it comes to resources. And so while the emergency is over, in a way, to me, this is a step back in the wrong direction, meaning are we moving towards a place where everyone has access to the things that they need? With that being said, I continue to emphasize it all the time in regards to us being the CEO of our own health, making sure that we're taking care of our own bodies, our own livelihood. When things do not feel okay and they don't feel right, I know the struggle that many people have in regards to always thinking about a medical bill. However, I just like to emphasize that that medical bill won't matter if you're not here. The medical bill won't matter if you're hospitalized and you can't go to work, which will then put you behind on things that you need. So you have to prioritize your health. And you have to know when it's appropriate for you to be able to seek out help. And then on top of that, sometimes you'll run into people that will gaslight you or will try to tell you that what you're feeling is not what you're feeling. They'll try to diagnose you without doing the full assessment. You then go to someone else that will listen. So as we're thinking about the COVID dollars drying up, as we're thinking about what does being healthy mean after we leave out of this era, I just emphasize to people that there are still so many unknowns in regards to the unintended consequences associated with COVID-19 as well as with COVID-19 vaccines or a combination thereof that we are still discovering. And so with that being understood, we have to know that when things are not going okay with our bodies, when things do feel off, that feeling off is your early warning sign, and it is essential that you seek medical care or inquiry so that way you have a better understanding of what's going on before it's too late.
Everybody, the COVID emergency on paper is over, but it's not over in fact, and neither is the RSV, all the flu, all of these things. We need to normalize health, as you just said, and we need to fight for a universal single-payer system. I don't know how we didn't get around to that with this kind of emergency, but we need to get around to that so that you do not have to go broke trying to be well. And so that every hospital in the country has the resources of a Stroger, of a Northwestern, of a Rush. I mean, you ought to be able to go any place in America and get well and not worry about it. Sending you so much love and happy Mother's Day for Peace to you, Dr. Shanina Knighton. Hey, Dr. Nina, Heydrnina. Mother's Day for Peace. I'm glad we were able to share something with you this morning. I'm going to have to share it some more. Sending you so much love, Dr. Knighton. I'm so
Thank
happy.
you. Have a good.
You too. God bless you. Everybody, let's talk about the mayor, the new mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. What do you want from him? What did he promise? What do you think he's going to be able to deliver? And what will you help him to do to make your life better? What did Lori Lightfoot do? She's going out like the lioness that she is. She is saying, and there's a Politico story that says, in typical Lori Lightfoot fashion, I love this woman, Chicago mayor exits proud after getting a lot of SHIT done. Yes, she did say that. You know she said it. I'm not mad at her. And, and she said, I'm combative. Yeah, I'm all of these things. And I got a lot of things done. And I got us through a pandemic. with my team. So I want to know what your thoughts are. What about her accomplishments? What about Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson's aspirations? Of course, WCPT will be carrying the inauguration live. I will be there, so you'll be hearing portions of this broadcast once again on Monday because I have to go down there early. And so there we have it. So I'm really, really glad about this day, and I hope to see everybody there because whether you voted for Brandon Johnson or not, he will be the mayor, but we need everybody who voted and everybody who didn't vote. We need everybody to come together to make this city what it's supposed to be. And it can only be what it's supposed to be if we are all in it, working to make it a great, great, great city, the city of big shoulders. We've got Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, political organizer and analyst, Attorney Aaron Connolly, and Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire. You know, I met, and you and Mayor Lightfoot have been colleagues and friends for a long time. What do you make of her legacy?
You talking to me?
Yes, Reverend Wilson. Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that one of the things that she has been able to, as you started out earlier, she's been able to deal with a pandemic. There's no other mayor in the city of Chicago that had to enter office in the midst of a pandemic where she had to literally shut the city down, open up hospital beds for people who acquired this horrific disease, and yet the city was still working. I mean, it was very, very difficult to create a communication system, create a testing system, a method of providing food and resources for children who only went to school every single day for breakfast and lunch, had to make sure that schools were able to change the plans and alter their plans to accommodate children. Schools had to become more technological than they had ever been and had ever anticipated being. A lot of things that she had to do during this pandemic. And I think that her being present, because she's very bright, very well organized in terms of her thinking and her thought process. Now, she was also able to look at the police department different than any other mayor because she had been on the police board. She had worked with the police board. She understood as a lawyer, as a former U.S. attorney, the process for how cases get to court and what should happen. So she was able to initiate some reforms in the police department, even though she had almost 100% vote of no confidence from many of the police officers who were a part of the Fraternal Order of Police. I think that she was able to look at neighborhoods differently than other mayors to try to figure out how she could move investments into neighborhoods and not just into downtown. And so, her plan of invest south and west is a great plan. She brought a lot of new resources to the city that she will not be able to enjoy as mayor. The National Democratic Convention is coming to Chicago next year. That's because of her administration. The NASCAR racing coming to Chicago because of her administration. And so I think that she's been able to do a number of things well. Unlike many of her predecessors, she was at least focused on the needs of the many and not the needs of the mighty. Was she able to accomplish it all? No. Just like the Bible said, one plants, another waters, but God gives the increase.
Attorney Aaron Connolly, her legacy as you see it.
Well, I think, Mayor Lightfoot came in. Let's take a look at remember the political climate she came into office in, right? She had this underdog victory in a crowded race and then defeated the very powerful and I think wonderful Tony Preckwinkle, who was also, in charge of the Democratic Party in the county. So And Lori Lightfoot came in as a accomplished attorney and prosecutor. She was not part of the system before coming into office. She had not served elected office, and coming into that, I think, into a structure like the city of Chicago with the entrenchment and I guess machine style that exists throughout city government and some of these jobs. Mayor Lightfoot had a lot of other things to tackle. A crisis in the Park District, right? That we don't talk about a lot in the press, but a transition there that needed to be cleaned up. Again, Reverend Wilson mentioned the transition with the police department and the combative nature of that relationship with the head of the police union and what she had to tackle during a very difficult time during COVID-19. I think one of the big accomplishments is the pilot program for cash transfers, direct cash payments to folks for $500, right? That makes a difference for folks who are living on the edge of poverty. And, I think that's a big step forward. We see the same efforts being made in Cook County. And I think those type of real progressive policies wouldn't have happened under, a different kind of mayor. It's similar to this investments in the South and West sides. There's been doors open for, different kinds of uses of TIF funding that are really focused on Black, brown, veteran women business owners in a way we haven't seen in the city of Chicago. I think she had some great appointments to her administration in the housing department and was able to start looking at affordable housing. And I know Mayor Johnson and his supporters in this new administration will take those open doors and really run through them. I think that is going to be a big part of the legacy. Mm-hmm. And I hope that we can all come together to accomplish those goals, right? I think Mayor Lightfoot has served our city, and we thank her for that service. And I think looking forward to a Johnson administration that, as we're looking to a transfer to a system where we will finally have an elected school board in Chicago, which unfortunately Mayor Lightfoot did support and say she supported when she was running for office, and then backtracked with some of the difficulties we saw with CTU and negotiating some of the safety measures for students and teachers during the pandemic. So I'm looking forward to a Johnson administration who will have a better working relationship in that area and be able to really kind of move forward some of those important things, and we can move into an elected school board that really can be better advocates for parents, students, and bring that contentious piece in our city together a little more. I think that's a big step forward.
Dwight McKee, what do you see as the Lightfoot legacy?
Well, I agree with Jeanette and Aaron. I think it's been a legacy more of inclusion, is that she was able to bring people into government that historically were fairly marginal and pretty excluded. So she brought in the gay community. They played a major role. She brought in many of blacks who had been historically kind of left out. She brought in a lot of Hispanics who historically been left out. I think that inclusion was a biggest part of her legacy. But also she was able to distribute goods and services a little broader. She was able to reinvest, whereas in some of the other mayors, particularly Rahm, it was very lopsided. The resources went, to one or two communities, and they went to a few developers and, a very close circuit of people. She's been able to strategically distribute those resources and those goods and services to a broader part of the community, of the city. And I think, she has to be given credit for that. I think it was a very good thing. Part of her legacy, I think, was the officiousness of her style. She was a little caustic in her approach. and in her zeal to be right and effective, it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And so I think that she could have been a little more diplomatic, a little more strategic, a little less caustic in her approach. Now, I wonder also if the fact that she was a woman and a gay woman with that style, she was judged much differently than had she been a man with that style. Because when you look at some of the past mayors, like even Mayor Washington and Mayor Daley and Mayor Daley's son, they had a pretty non-fluid style themselves. They were pretty aggressive and pretty officious themselves. But I don't think they were judged the same way Mayor Lightfoot was judged.
Absolutely.
I think because she was a woman.
You know, I mean, because Dwight, when women get angry and when we are in authority and let you know that something was not right or something was not acceptable, I mean, it really puts, it takes men back a few paces. I'm going to open that. I want you to speak to that, but I'm going to open that up to Aaron and to Reverend Jeanette Wilson, because, you know, you must be the nice little girl always. And, you know, she was like, are you serious right now? Dwight?
Okay. Yeah, and I think that because she was not just a woman, but a gay woman, that people imposed a judgment there that they would not have imposed had she been a man. I think had she been a man, they just said she was, very aggressive and very demanding, and really kind of knew what she wanted and knew where she was going. Whereas her being a woman, they really kind of set it up as a negative, that she was mean-spirited and hostile. And I always thought that was a little unfair, you know, that devilish judgment was a little unfair. Because I think it's a double standard that way.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so what do you say about that, Reverend Wilson?
Well, I think whenever women are in positions of power, we're judged differently, and we're treated differently by women and men. Women somehow don't want to report and view women in leadership in the same way they do men. And so you have to overcome the hostility from your own gender. And in her position, she is a former U.S. prosecutor. And as a lawyer who prosecutes cases, you get the facts, you review the circumstances that occurred, you gather your plans, and you move aggressively forward. And I think part of her lack of receptivity by many was the fact that you start in COVID, I have to make decisions on behalf of the citizens of this city to protect them from themselves even. She had to make some hard, tough decisions and live with them without regard to, well, I don't feel like putting on a mask. You're going to wear a mask every day. You're going to get these shots because we have to live, we have to survive, and you can't hurt others. She had to close schools. Parents were working every day, needed those schools open because they had no daycare or home care for their children. So she had to make very tough decisions that people would not like. Communication is often difficult when you know some things that the people don't know, and you have to say, this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there. It's almost like Harriet Tubman. Do you want to be free? Well, you can only go one way or the other. And those kinds of statements offend people because they want you to say it in a nicer, gentler, calmer way. And that was not her style. And I think given the weight of what was placed upon her, it's very difficult to sugarcoat COVID. It's very difficult to say, well, you know, I inherited and I would have opened up my administration every day saying, "This is what we face today." To give people a sense of why she was making decisions. She had some tough decisions to make. You had violence in the city and a police department that stood down on much of this. They never treated any other mayor like this.
What do you mean?
They did not. Well, as the mayor of the city, the police typically are working with and for you to make sure that there's safety in the city. You have a group of police officers who challenge the mayor publicly. That's not the way it goes in Chicago. It has been in Chicago, and that's very difficult to have. What is really your army, your force of protection, not supportive of your issues and the elements of your administration. That's very difficult, and to be a woman. And they acted as though she didn't have the authority to select her bodyguards, and she did. She had to feel protected so that she could function every day in this city. And you saw, if you look across her administration, violence erupting in 10 what we call endangered communities with few arrests. There's something wrong with that process. Police know how to get people. They know how to solve crimes. And yet, you have the most unsolved crimes in the history because they didn't like the chief that she selected. I mean, so you have a lot of those factors. She inherited schools that were already closed in certain neighborhoods with no plan to open them. And yet she had to make sure, and a declining, as you know, Santita, the census, many people had left Chicago, which is a decline in population in certain areas, and trying to reallocate resources equitably, which had not been done before. It's the first time the aldermen since Harold Washington decided to rise up and challenge the mayor. They never challenged Daley or Ron.
Okay.
So you had this independent move all of a sudden in the midst of her first 2 years.
Well, let me say this because I've got to hard out to this break. How do you think this will carry over into the Johnson administration, which begins on Monday? And in Chicago, mayors start working on day one. I mean, they don't get a honeymoon. And so the honeymoon effectively is over on Monday. How will the police treat Mayor Johnson? The head of FOP already said people are going to resign, and basically we will stand down. You saw this happen in New York under Bill de Blasio. This is what happened to him.
Absolutely.
It happened to him. And the police not only protect the city, they protect the person. They are effectively the Secret Service of Chicago in many respects. So you can imagine how personally this impacts you. And this is a city in which the police participated in the assassination of Fred Hampton. So we know when things can go real wrong real fast. So let's talk about this, everybody. What is Mayor Lightfoot's legacy? Pam, call me back, and I want you to let me know what you want Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson to do. Accomplishments, aspirations, and what are you going to do to make it happen? Because that's the only way that it's going to happen. The only reason you had someone who was completely unknown a year ago, 1 to 2% recognition, name recognition, and now he's the mayor. Okay, something happened. How did he turn that ship of state around? It wasn't just the CTU. There's something about him that is very inspiring to people. There's something about him as an organizer that shows you that he knows how to work with people. But let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show on WCBT and AM 950 Radio. Back in just a minute. Ooh, you all can keep on talking. We're on Facebook Live and on YouTube.
I think
keep talking.
I think Brandon Johnson has a different style. Mm-hmm. He's more humble. He appears to be more diplomatic. And there is this God factor. Somehow, all of the faith leaders coming together to support him. I mean, diverse group of faith leaders across the city, and this has been a growing group. And his speech yesterday at the Interfaith Breakfast indicates a spiritual presence, an overwhelming spiritual presence within him that I think will help guide him through some very difficult waters, because he's facing three issues right away. One, this migrant crisis, how to handle them when they enter the city where police and then how to handle the growing homeless population that exists in the city, how he's going to deal with the policing, who he selects
Dr. Malvo's on the line.
as his chief of police. And the third thing is this economy. What is he going to do about it? And the violence, the economy, and the migrants are number 1, 2, and 3 in my judgment.
Well, we got Dr. Julianne Malvo with us. Dr. Julianne Malvo,
Hey, Dr. Malvo.
You hear Reverend Jeanette Wilson. We've got Attorney Aaron Connolly and Dwight McKee.
Well, good morning, all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
So you're asking folks what the 3 most important things are?
Oh, I'm sorry. What did you just say? I'm looking at some of these.
I said, well, you're asking folks what our esteemed...
Mr. Lampy's on the line.
I'm sorry, I
Yes.
didn't hear you. Someone was in my ear. I'm sorry. What happened?
No worries. I just said, I was asking, were you asking us what the mayor was going to have to do with?
Well, we were looking back and looking forward, because his immediate predecessor is in office until Monday. She's had to declare a state of emergency with respect to this migrant crisis that we've got. And it impacts Chicago in a particular way because Chicago is an anomaly in the Midwest because we farm here. Detroit is an anomaly. This is the part of the country where you do a lot of farming in addition to the South. So, and so she declared a state of emergency with respect to that yesterday because, this is just, sucking up our resources. And it's just sad that we are being forced into this false choice between taking care of people who corporations are pulling in. You know this, Dr. Malvo. They're pulling these workers in just as they pulled us in 400 plus years ago. And it's just it's a horrible thing. So
Mr. Nagaris is on the line.
we're punching at them.
I think it's predatory capitalism at its worst.
Oh, boy.
And because these people are being exploited, and then the taxpayers think they're being exploited as well. And although it's a very sensitive subject, some people, those companies and those farms who get these workers, they need to be taxed because they're getting a benefit that the rest of us are paying for. But, it's such a bittersweet moment to have such a wonderful new mayor come in, but to have all the challenges that he's going to have to deal with. And as people are rank ordering them, I would say the first is housing. It's housing. It's all over the country. It's certainly, I'm in L.A., where we have 40,000 homeless people on the street. We don't have that many in Chicago, but there are so many, and there's so much city-owned or federally owned land. The mayor can do something around housing. That would be great. But, the police issue, the 2 issues that really confronted him during the election, the police union supporting his opponent, and, of course, the teachers union supporting him, those are the issues. There's education. It's going to be education or it's going to be police, but now he's got to deal with both. He's got to deal with both. And whoever he chooses as his chief, that's going to send a signal.
Everyone, if you could stay with me a little while after 8 o'clock, if you can, those of you who can, because I'm going to be at the inauguration on Monday. And so I'm going to, much of this show will be repurposed for Monday as well. And so very, very excited about that. So that having been said, Xavier, how you doing?
I am good. Good to be here.
Xavier Nagaris, he's one of the Rainbow Push babies. Yes, I know you're middle aged now. We all are, but of course, he was on the road at 17. Dr. Malveaux, and Reverend Wilson and Dwight and Aaron, and Kevin Lampy when he was campaigning for Reverend in 1987, 88, and he was running as a delegate. He said, "I'm not 18 yet, but I will be." Bless his heart. And gave his first sermon. Was it, or one of your first sermons at Rainbow Push?
Yeah. Oh my God, Harold was there.
Yeah.
Harold Washington was at that sermon, and it was just so weird to be a few weeks ago to speak in front of Mayor Johnson, and it was just like I was looking at the crowd, and he was sitting there practically where Harold Washington was sitting. So it was a real surreal moment for me, but it also reminded me of how long it's been for somebody like myself at my age back then to be able to look at a crowd and to be able to see someone like Harold Washington, right? Like being young and seeing Harold Washington. And I could imagine right now the excitement of young people, somebody from Austin or somebody from Humboldt Park to see somebody like Johnson be mayor. And I still think it gets lost on folks of how.
Stand by, coming back in 15.
Well, stand by, you did say it was like watching a homie.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
Oh my gosh. But that matters. Stand by.
Change the world. Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Friday, May 12th, 2023. It is a joy to be with you on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, at AM 950 Radio. This is a special broadcast. You'll be hearing us on Monday, May 15th. Why? Because we will all be at the inauguration of Mayor Brandon Johnson, of Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. He will become the mayor on Monday. What do you hope that he will do? What did he campaign on? What are you going to help him do? We've also been talking about the legacy of Mayor Lori Lightfoot. It was a substantial one, even though some people are saying, I'm not here for it, but she did accomplish a lot and at a very, very difficult time. But I hope that you see that with that it's going to require your participation. It's not just about your vote. I told you the vote for you, for all of us, is the end of the beginning. Now the work has to begin for all of us. We have to start attending the city council meetings. You have to start holding your alders accountable. Ask them, okay, why are you pushing up on the mayor? Why are you holding back on the mayor? On and on and on. We need to understand all of that. We need to really understand how the city works. You need to hold your alders accountable. You need to understand county government, because the county government they are the entity that give us our budget. They give us our money. There's a lot that we need to learn about this whole process and how the city is run, so that we can get what it is that we need. We've got a tremendous panel. Joining Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist, and attorney Aaron Connolly, brilliant political analyst and organizer, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire from Rainbow Push, all of you brilliant. We have got Dr. Julianne Malveaux, the President Emeritus of Bennett College for Women. Of course, she is also a brilliant economist and the Dean of Ethnic Studies at Cal State Los Angeles. And we've got Xavier Nagaris. Yes, I'm going to call him the Rainbow Push baby because that's what he has been. But of course, he is now a big media figure, the head of the Boca Media Group. And we're going to have Kevin Lampy, a political strategist from Kurth Lampy Worldwide. Got a lot of ground to cover, everybody. As all of us who are in Chicago are going to be we're on our way to the inauguration right now. And so it's very exciting. But now what's next? What's next? And what can we learn from his immediate predecessor, Lori Lightfoot. She was the first black woman, the first openly gay mayor, the first openly gay black woman mayor, because, what can we learn from her? Dwight McKee said, she gave us a lot of inclusion. She did all of that. But when it came to interpersonal relationships, that was troublesome. Because maybe we're not accustomed, a woman who is combative and who pushes, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, including women. So let's look at all of that on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. Title 42 has ended. Title 42 had enabled the swift removal of migrants because of COVID. As it expired, the Biden administration has warned of tough penalties for illegal crossings. What do you think is going to happen? We now have a state of emergency in other cities, but starting here in Chicago. That was started yesterday by outgoing Mayor Lori Lightfoot. The chokehold killing of Jordan Neely, well, it has now been amped up. Daniel Penny, who has been charged with second-degree manslaughter in his death, is expected to appear in Manhattan Criminal Court. Of course, the coroner found that Mr. Penny had been killed, death by homicide. And it's been more than a week since Mr. Penny, former Marine veteran, has been charged. But a lot of people are protesting, so we will see where that case goes. And those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show as we are heading to the inauguration of Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson, everybody. 70 degrees will be the high today in Chicago. And you just check out the weather because, we played all day here at WCPT. But stay right here on WCPT, because on WCPT, we are going to be streaming the inauguration live. You don't want to miss it. We're not going to miss a trick. We will be right there, everybody. In the NBA, the Celtics 95, the 76ers 85. Who is going to win that series? The Celtics or the 76ers? Who's going to win, the Warriors or the Lakers? The Knicks or the Heat? The Nuggets or the Suns? Well, the Nuggets Denver already won there. So we will see in the NHL who's going to win this trophy. Who's going to win, who's going to win, who's going to win. It is going to be a very, very exciting weekend in the NBA and in the NHL and in Major League Baseball. It's that time of year when everybody's playing everything all the time. We have a new sponsor here on the Santita Jackson Show, Meggitt Financial. You've been hearing me talk about my newest sponsor, Ron Whittingham from Meggitt Financial, and soon you'll be hearing directly from him. I'm really, really excited about this venture because this company can be your financial advisor. And you don't have to have high net worth. You can be middle class, you can be working class, you can be functionally poor. You can work at a fast food restaurant and you can become their client. Yes, 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 yes. This is all about you investing your money properly and preparing for a comfortable retirement. So Meggitt Financial, they have built their business on helping middle-class people and working-class people and people who just don't have high net worth for retirement. Some financial advisors are only interested in managing your money if they can get a big fee, but that is not what they do. They're true advisors. They help you to become financially literate so you can understand where your paycheck needs to go, everybody, regardless of your income or financial situation. Give them a call at 708-444-1090, 708-444-1090. Go to meggentfinancial.com, MEGENT financial.com, everybody, 708-444-1090. All right, everybody, let's get right to it. Let's get into. We've been talking about Mayor Lightfoot, and now we are on our way to this inauguration. Xavier, what does this inauguration mean to you? I know I had to get a little giggle because you said when I see him, it's like I'm seeing a homeboy, someone who is a person of color, and someone who did not grow up with money, who didn't grow up privileged. And if he can do it, I can too. Am I reading that correctly?
Absolutely, but I think even deeper than that, you have people, especially in some of our challenged neighborhoods, looking at him and think, he gets it. He lives in Austin. He deals with what we deal with. When I wake up in the morning and I have to deal with some of these challenges in the neighborhood, and I know he has, right? And I have to tell you though, I'm looking at I'm looking at like the committee chairs, right, that were appointed by him. I mean, it is something that's so historical. We've never seen so many, not just progressive folks, but folks who really get what we're talking about. It's really interesting seeing somebody like Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa chair zoning. Like that really blows me away because we've never seen anything like that. And what's the significance of that? Gentrification, right? The issues that we're having with housing. Housing is getting really hard to afford housing in Chicago, right? And so, I know that we have a mayor that gets it when you see him, appointing somebody like Carlos Rosa. When you see him appointing, my other homie, Alderman-elect Jesse Fuentes from the 26th Ward, Humboldt Park, as a youth service subcommittee chair. It's just amazing. Alderman Jeanette Taylor as the chairman of education. We've never seen folks like this chairing committees in City Hall. This truly is transformational.
Kevin Lampy, your thoughts?
There's such opportunity, and anytime there's a transition in power, there is opportunity. And one of the things that I'll build on what my good friend Xavier was just talking about. You're looking at the new chairs that are coming in here, and I've worked with Pat Dow for many years, so I am biased about that, but she's moving up to the Finance Committee. But Brian Hopkins is going to be in public safety, and Brian was someone that supported Paul Vallis, and so what is happening is Johnson and members of City Council are working together to create a City Council that is going to step off on the first foot of working together and being, not a divided City Council, not going back to the Veolia Act 29. And now we have an opportunity to kind of maybe have a little bit of a clean slate and be able to look at how we can solve these problems, with input from every single part of the city. And I think that's what's most exciting, what's going to happen with this transition we're going to look at this week.
Dr. Malvo, you're in Los Angeles, but you're also Washington. I mean, you're one of the most esteemed economists in the world, and you do know Mayor-elect Johnson, and you were very, very excited about him running. You were very excited at the prospect of him winning. Why? I mean, because this appears to have national implications for you, to you.
It absolutely does. I mean, with all due respect to Mayor Lightfoot, who did a good job, she did lay a good foundation for him. Her people skills, could deserve an upgrade, but that's neither here nor there. She used the past, and she deserves all credit for what she's done. But I saw Mayor Johnson, as a fresh face in politics that was grounded, securely grounded in progressive values, that cares about education, which makes his appeal multi-generational as far as I'm concerned, and who understands economic issues, which are the issues that are going to be driving. And he's so accessible, so personal, so accessible, but that's what excited me. I'm like, it's turning a page. And I just was looking at, his committee appointments. I mean, he's coming in a way that he should be coming in. He's attempting to build coalitions, to build bridges. I think that the challenges that he has are many, and I hope that citizens will give him not a break, but an opportunity to at least immerse himself in some of these issues. I mean, Lori Lightfoot unfortunately got a whole lot of crap thrown at her early on. She got lots of slings and arrows. You let Brandon get in, let him have some time to do some things. And I know someone's listening and saying, what do you mean some time? Because people don't have time. When you look at what's happening with housing, with immigration, with education, with so-called public safety. When you look at all those things are urgency. And so while these committees are quite interesting, I looked them up while y'all were talking. Since I don't know Chicago, I don't know these people, but it does look like, it looks like a diversity. But it's beyond that. Just the committees, who are going to be the actual administrators? who he appoints, who will be accountable to the people. But I trust the young brother. And that's the other thing. His age is exciting. As Xavier said, he's like a homie. So I feel very protective toward him. I was introduced to him through you, Santita, on one of either your program or Reverend Jackson had met him at Rainbow Push.
He was my fill-in host.
Maybe that's
you can't make that up. You can't make it up. But he also pulled for me to get on the air here. So there's that.
No, he's absolutely amazing, and it's a great opportunity. I think that black politics at some level have become very turgid. While some of these folks are my friends and colleagues, you see people, my age who've been in office for 20, 30 years, and they're doing the same things. Sometimes they're doing them well, but sometimes you do want to say, can we open up the door and let in some light? And that's what he represents for me, is light.
Dwight McKee, what does he represent to you?
New possibilities, new thoughts, not the same old that we've been used to. I think him coming out of labor, him being an advocate for education, gives him a clear advantage than almost every other man we've had, who always treated the Board of Education like a annuity for them to pass out to their friends. So I think the fact that he comes out of education, and I think he's open to new ideas. I really want to see him, and I've talked to him about it, is jump on what Jesse Jr. had tried to do with the airport and create a regional airport in the south suburbs as an engine for economic development, the way Mayor Daley used O'Hare to develop the western suburbs. I really like to see him impose a tax, and he's mentioned that he would, on the different economic engines in the city, the Board of Trade, and where the money is really made.
Okay, hold on.
Where the money is really made.
Okay.
Yeah, the mercantile mark and the Board of Trade, and where money is passed back and forth, basically it's been tax-free. And they've been living off the prerogatives of the poor communities and taking full advantage of all of the taxes and the resources that we bring to the table that they benefit by and from, with no real responsibilities or accountability to reinvest in the city. And so I just think he's the possibilities are almost unlimited, given his mindset and given his progressive nature.
Aaron, your thoughts?
Well, what I've seen from Brandon Johnson over the years organizing in this community is a true servant leader who cares about people, who shows up for people, who really invests his time, his energy, who's someone who's a committed father, who shows up in ways where other folks in public life sometimes don't, right? He really, really walks the walk. And that's what I've personally observed from him. And I think his energy and his character are a magnet for hope and joy. And that's what showed up for him. This next generation showed up more than they have in any election in recent history, from Generation Z to younger millennials who are hoping to invest and buy houses and apartments and condos in the city of Chicago. And Brandon Johnson represents that new generation, and we're seeing his collaboration and his coalition being given these leadership spots. And I think, to Kevin's point and to Xavier's point, what we'll see in the leadership of these committees and city council is going to be crucial. The management of implementing an elected school board in a way that doesn't create another combative system for parents and students, that really is, focused on representing these families in the system. I think just his general sense of collaboration, and to Reverend Wilson's point, his spiritual grounding and his understanding that that there is a moral component to this, and it's a duty to represent all people in the city. And I think that grounding in faith for me, I've seen that show up over the years, having the privilege to organize with folks like now Mayor-elect Johnson in this community, right? And as you said, Santita, speak with him on this show as the fill-in host for many years, and hear the stories about his kids and his family, and supporting his wife as a great husband and father in Austin, and hearing those stories about what makes him him, and seeing him show up for the coalition that will now be in leadership. And we look at some of the appointments this week. The amazing Jennifer Johnson will be part of his administration. I was so excited to see that, and knowing how she shows up in the community as well, right? These are people that do the work in the field, that are out talking to people and listening, and that makes a huge difference when you're rolling out, what engagement with the official city looks like. When you care about listening to people, it's really going to be a different fifth floor, I hope.
When we get back, Jeanette Wilson, I want to hear from you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire. What do you expect from him, and what should we do to make this happen? Because he has aspirations, and so do we. The question is, what are we going to do, or do we need to do anything to make this, the dream of a great Chicago, a reality? Yeah, it does. I mean, now that you voted, now you got to go to the school board meetings. Now you must go to the city council meetings. Now you must get to know your alders. Now. The plan works when you work it. You remember that, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman used to say, it works when you work it. Now, you can't just pick up the Bible, read it, and put it down. You got to work this plan. And it is a difficult plan. It's a difficult journey, but we can do it. So what do we need to do in order to make this city work? Chicago is a city that works, but it doesn't work for everybody. But we don't know how to work it either. So let's talk about that. And of course, we are on our way to the inauguration of Mayor Brandon Johnson. Cannot wait to see what is in store for him and what is in store for us. What it will mean, what his administration will mean. You saw people power. We aspired to have this guy be our mayor. We were not going to have the corporate media dictate to us what the agenda was going to be, who the mayor was going to be. Chicago rose up in the most unexpected places, Xavier, Dwight. You all predicted this. You said, wait, don't think that all the white women on the lake are going to vote for Vallis. No. It really became ideological, which is something that Dwight McKee talked about. People have a certain way that they see this city. They have a certain way that they see the city and the country going and where it needs to go. And, that's really it. Call me at 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on Inauguration Day. Back in just a moment. You all can keep talking while I'm looking at a couple of things here.
And we're live on the Facebook page right now.
Santita. Yes. So, temper.
Well, you know what? I'm going to talk about something right now that happened late Thursday night. I got a phone call from Alderman Pat Dow. She told me 70 people, 70 immigrants, 70 souls were dropped off from a bus. 70 immigrants were dumped in Chicago with no support, no warning, no help, and a bus that was sent full of migrants from Florida or Texas. We're still trying to figure out which of those governors down there have used these people as a political pawn.
Habit. All of them. They're all doing it. You know that.
And it is, you know.
The main one is Texas. Texas is the main one doing this stuff. They're all doing it, but Texas is really egregiously.
Oh, absolutely.
Anyway.
And what is upsetting me the most is Governor DeSantis and Governor Abbott. They will tell you on Sunday morning, I'm a Christian. I am a Christian. And then on Monday morning, they do the most un-Christ-like thing they can in the world. You know, one of my favorite passages in the Bible where it says, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I needed shelter, you took me in. And then the people asked, well, Jesus, we never saw you. They said, when you did that for the least of my brothers, you did it for me. And these men, these men who claim to have the shield of Christianity, what they're doing is destroying people, and there's 70 souls.
But remember, lynching was an after-church activity. You know, this is how we roll here.
But I think by now we should have a process for receiving migrants. Every state should have a process, even though they're being shipped to cities headed by black mayors. America needs a process for receiving migrants into our borders. When Katrina happened, Chicago had a process for receiving people. We had a place where you were taken, you were assessed in terms of your needs, your physical needs, your health needs, your mental health needs, and then there were clergy, mental health people. By now, we should have a process and stop acting like we're shocked. They keep sending them. Biden has to have a process. No.
It happened on Thursday night.
Hold on. Let him finish.
No.
Let him finish.
I didn't finish.
Yep. Okay. Well, honey, wait a minute. We don't have to get tight here. It's okay. I can only do with what I can only look at. I can only do what I'm hearing.
We're shocked.
And we shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be. Kevin?
1 minute.
I've got less than a minute here.
There was, we didn't get a warning if people were coming on Thursday night. If we would have got a warning, we would have had things taken care of. We scrambled all night long to find a place for these people to go. We finally got social services that if we would have had the warning, we would have been there with open arms and welcoming them. My point is, what they're doing with Abbott and DeSantis are doing is using these people as political pawns. We have a process that is building. And last night, if we would have got a phone call in the middle of the day saying 70 people on their way, we would have been there. Alderman Dow would have motivated people. They would have been there to welcome them with open arms and get them into a process. The problem is with these unchristian men who claim to be Christians are dumping people and using them as pawns for their own political gain.
Well, that's true, but this is not just a Republican thing.
Stand by.
This is, because many people are accusing President Biden of continuing a Trump policy. So there's that.
We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody, let's talk about Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson. He is about to become mayor. We're on our way to the inauguration. What do we expect to see from his administration? What is it that we need to be working toward? He's walking in under a lot of pressure. Mayor Lori Lightfoot has just declared a state of emergency with respect to the migrants, who are just being sent to Los Angeles. They're being sent to Chicago. They're being sent to New York. They're being sent all over the country. Even as we hear President Biden say, almost as an aside in an interview last weekend, he said, yes, it's a crisis, but we need our farm workers. When are we going to call these corporations? Hold on, let me finish here. When are we going to call these corporations to account? See, because if black people were brought into America by corporations so that we could do the work. We're seeing the same thing, that we have not figured this out. We figured it out. We just don't want to pay these folks for the work that they do. So let's talk about this, because he is walking into an underfunded public school system. He is being asked to do more with fewer resources. Kevin Lampe, very quickly, you made a point very, very quickly and succinctly so that Reverend Wilson, who's anxious to respond to you, can make it, and because I want the rest of the audience to hear what you said very quickly within a minute. Kevin Lampe?
Yes. So late on Thursday night, busload of immigrants showed up at on the street in front of the 2nd Police District, and without any warning, without any phone call, without anything, these people are on their way, not even a chance for us to put something in place to welcome them and to be able to get them into a process. My objection is that there are Republican governors who are using people as political pawns. On Sunday, they say, I am a Christian, look at me. And on Monday morning, they're saying, look at me, I'm a sinner. And I am doing everything against what the Bible and Jesus taught me to do. And I'm just done with the actions of these Republican governors who are doing everything they can to destroy people and destroy our democracy.
Reverend Wilson, you wanted to respond?
I think that we must be prepared to receive migrants all across America. They are being shipped to major cities, particularly those that are headed by African Americans. So at this point, these are children and parents and families that they're not immigrants. They didn't decide to come anywhere. They're being sent, which is what Santita keeps saying, as if they are slaves. They have no judgment about coming. So therefore, by now, the way they keep sending people to our city and other cities, you have to get prepared, as we did with Katrina in Chicago. When Katrina happened, the mayor marshaled all of the city's resources, faith resources, as well as corporate resources, as well as the city's services, the county. Everybody has to be engaged to make decisions about assessing and placing the migrants. Having them put on floors is inhumane. And at the same time, you have homeless people sleeping on the ground. And so we have to, as a city, bring together all of the forces to determine what do we do with people who are unhoused.
And let me share this with you in furtherance of that point. I read this in Common Dreams, one of my favorite news aggregation sites, and the headline is this: Reverend Wilson and panel, and Kevin and panel. Critics warn Biden is finishing Trump's job with new attack on asylum seekers. U.S. President Joe Biden's newly unveiled plan to crack down on asylum seekers, which his administration is expected to implement following the scheduled expiration of the pandemic-era Title 42 policy on Thursday, is being denounced for entrenching a bipartisan abandonment of international human rights law. I mean, the fact is, Democrats and Republicans are in on this, as Democrats and Republicans are in on bringing these people in to do work that they don't want to pay them for. America has never figured this out. You need to pay people for the work they've done. The Staple Singers had a song I heard more than 50 years ago when I was a child in Ghana. They said, when will we be paid for the work we've done? When are we going to do that? And I'm not willing to let Democrats off the hook, Biden off the hook, anybody off the hook. And then you dump them wherever you choose to dump them. So you've got Mayor Lightfoot, who's been shouting about this for months. She's like, look, I'm not trying to reject these folks, but what are y'all doing? And I know what they're doing. They're moving them in here just so they can be the farm workers and pay them nothing. And shame, and what is it going to do? It's going to have black people and brown people at each other's throats here. And I hope we don't fall for that. I hope we don't fall for it. But I feel like we are. Does anyone want to comment? You, Julianne Malveaux, Dwight, anyone? Dr. Malveaux?
I would. This is Erin.
Let me start with Dr. Malveaux, or is it Aaron? Who did I just hear?
This was me trying to say something someone else was also.
Okay, well, let me start with you. Let me start with you, Dr. Malveaux, and then leave space so someone else, Aaron and everybody else can come in.
I think, you laid it out in terms of the labor market. Corporations are benefiting from these people coming in, and they should therefore concomitantly be taxed. They will be a burden to the city, and that's what is intended by these Republican governors. But you're absolutely right. President Biden has not stepped up to do what he should do with the expiration of Section 42. So you're also right. We can't call this a Democratic problem or Republican problem. It's a human problem. These are people. Brother spoke earlier. He said these are souls. I forgot the number. But souls who are just being dumped in cities who are already being stretched. This is a political ploy. But notwithstanding the political ploy, now that we know that this is going to continue to happen, Reverend Wilson is right. Now that we know this is happening, how are we preparing for it? Because it's going to continue to happen. It's a way of embarrassing mayors who are largely Democratic, embarrassing Democrats. So, I hate that this is one more thing that's piled on Mayor Johnson's plate, but it has to be dealt with. That's the nature of being a mayor. And you said, did you ask the question earlier? You said, what is our role? Our role is to be there, to go, as you said, all these meetings, go to these meetings, give input. I know that he's really willing to hear the input. Give input. Voting is not the most you can do, it's the least you can do.
Was that you, Aaron, you wanted to jump in, or Xavier, someone? Who?
Yes, yeah. I wanted to just also comment on what was going on in the House of Representatives yesterday. So a bill passed through Congress that essentially was eliminating the right to asylum seekers. We have Democrats in Congress like Delia Ramirez working to try to get solutions to this problem. Republicans are not even willing to discuss a real worker program that would eliminate some of this issue. And as Congresswoman Ramirez said yesterday on C-SPAN, there is a request for these workers. There needs to be a system to support them in a humane, responsible way that allows our economy and our humanity to exist at the same time. These folks do have a constitutional right to seek asylum. And if we're asking them to come to this country to do this labor, I mean, look at the abandoned fields in Florida this week. Have you seen those photos? People are fleeing that state. There's empty construction sites because the workers are leaving because of this new discriminatory legislation where you can be arrested for even having someone who's undocumented in your vehicle, right? So, the extreme positions are throughout this nation, and we have Governor Abbott on cable news laughing about this, how, the shipment of migrants are making traffic jams in New York City, and that's the request from the Fox News host, right? So there's a different take on this in the GOP world, and they are being trafficked for political purposes and political gain. The city, I think, has an opportunity to come together and find some real solutions. But, Mayor Johnson was in Washington, D.C. this week as well, building those coalitions for the federal support that is, frankly, necessary to tackle this international crisis. It's not just limited to our border. This goes beyond our borders into these nations where, we've intervened for many, many years, and the conditions there are as such that these people need to flee and seek asylum. So it's not just within our border, it's outside of it, and it's going to take a bigger approach than just what we can do in the city.
And it's a bipartisan betrayal. Look, during Hurricane Katrina, you had the largest mass exodus of people in our history. More than 1.3 million people were moved in. It blew apart Black power in that part of the South. What the Department of Labor did in the Bush administration, and it could have been a Democratic administration because he's a corporatist, period. They relaxed the rules so that you could bring workers in from South and Central America to come and rebuild the Gulf region. They wouldn't even let the people who lived in New Orleans rebuild where they were living in New Orleans because they wanted to gentrify it and get them out. And we need to be very, very specific and clear about what's happening here. Because our government has programs that allow private corporations to use slave labor in these prisons. That's what they become.
Absolutely.
You have them put out the fires in California, but they come out of prison, they can't become a fireman. Are you serious right now? We've been doing this for hundreds of years. When are we going to learn? This ain't new. And it's offensive to me for us to think that we are dealing with a new problem. We are not dealing with a new problem. We're dealing with an historical problem. And if we don't get it right, the whole country's going to come apart. That's it.
When you said we learned, we did learn. We learned that predatory capitalism works. We
Yeah, we learn that,
it's
but I guess I'm trying the higher aspiration. That is when you learn, my great grandmama told me you do right. Mm-hmm.
You do better.
Oh, okay. No, you do right.
differently.
You do right. That's the goal, is to do right. Yeah, it's,
One of the things I wanted to suggest about Mayor Johnson's administration, I think that he has, as an organizer, I met him when he was working with the teachers union, and when Karen Lewis, we were trying to help her become the president of the teachers union. They would push every Thursday. We had teachers meeting. Brandon Johnson, Stacy Gates Davis. They were young, interested activists, really, who wanted to improve the quality of education in our schools. And I watched him move from being there, working with Karen Lewis as her health declined, and she ended up leaving. She was grooming them for leadership while she was head of the teachers union. And then you saw him go to Brandon Johnson, become Commissioner Johnson. So he has some understanding of county government and has garnered the support of President Pretwinkle. So he has an infrastructure of political people who will help undergird him politically. He's not a politician in a real sense, but he has politicians who support him. And then he has this broad-based faith community. This is the first time since, as you know, probably since Mayor Washington was elected, that you had such a groundswell of faith leaders. They weren't just praying for him. They were literally taking people to the polls, working hard for him. Then you had this labor coalition that formed around his. So I think that he will have different tentacles of support, and the people will have to, as we have said on this program, go to the city council meetings, monitor what's happening. Go to your local community meetings, monitor what's happening in your neighborhood. We're going to demand that these parks, at least I'm going to really demand that these parks are open to children. Faith leaders are going to have to open these churches to these children who will be out of school starting June the 7th. We have to have a plan and have to help him have a plan. The mayor doesn't have to do everything. The mayor has the bully pulpit to convene all of the resources, corporate resources. We have to push corporate America in Chicago to give back. They can't keep taking. They have to give internships, summer jobs have to increase. They have enough of them. They're giving them to their friends and family. We now have to expand it to Chiquita and Ray Ray so that they can have the resources they need and not use drug money to survive.
And Jaime and Maria.
I think we have a... Yeah, we got to get Jaime and Maria.
And them and they. I mean, it's everybody's supposed to get a piece of this. I mean, what is that? You know, I mean, because let me say this, and I want to open this to the whole panel, because Susan Garner says, what action can the average citizen take? Because now we're talking all this stuff up, but they don't know what they can do. Dwight McKee, when I was a little girl, you were head of the youth division at Operation Breadbasket and then Operation Push. What can the average person do? What have you taught young people to do? What are you teaching young people to do on the West Side with Pastor Marshall Hatch?
Well, the good part of this administration, for the first time, it represents the whole city. It has a West Side grounding. And historically, even when the black community was in charge of the mayor's office, most of the politics operated from the South Side, and most of the resources maintain themselves on the South Side. Brandon is a West Sider, and he brings a lot of the West Side skill set and relationships with him. And so that's fairly new in a city like Chicago, where the West Side has not always been perceived as a co-equal in government or in resources. I think what we can do is teach our children what government is and how government operates. The big advantage we used to have when we first started the organization, Jeanette, is that we had a Wednesday night political education division, and Alice Frigay and some other guys really taught us what politics were and how politics operated. And it gave us a real grounding. And even Reverend Jackson really got his political exposure from Leon Davis and Alice Frigay's classes. And it gave us all the real oversight in how politics work and what the benefits were and what the responsibilities were. And so we knew what we were looking at, and we knew what we were working for. We got out and campaigned for guys. Early in, we knew exactly what we were campaigning for and who we were campaigning with. And many of the people who had been in those classes, they themselves ran for political office and became eventually players on the political in the political system. And so I think it all starts with education, with exposure, and it gives our kids some aspirations that are not above them. If they see people who look like they look, come from the same backgrounds that they come from. So it's not a mythical experience for them. It's something that's reachable. It's a reachable star. And I think we have to take full advantage of it, to take them down to City Hall, to let them see how government works, take them to the fifth floor, let them see how government works, take them to these rallies, take them to PUSH, take them to the Urban League, let them understand how the system operates. I think it's an ideal time to do that.
I mean, Xavier, this has been your point. You know, now young people see someone like them and who's living also on the West Side. So what about getting our young people down to City Hall? What about getting them out to the community organizations, the organizations in the community, so they can know from the ground up? So you learned early on how to do this because you became. Why did you get involved so early in your life? Why?
I was, living in Humboldt Park, young teenager, running around with my friends who, were gangbangers, and we didn't have that mentorship, but somebody did in high school. There was this a leadership club for Latinos, and somehow I got involved in that, and then I got involved with Operation PUSH, and got involved in politics and became a youth commissioner. After Harold, the whole thing of having youth commissioners kind of went away. I told Brandon Johnson a few weeks ago while I was on the pulpit, we got to bring that back. And you have a mayor that literally was, it wasn't, obviously just young people, but literally would not be there if it wasn't for young people. Like we haven't seen anything like this, maybe even ever. And so that hope is there because young people, it already started before he became mayor. Young people were already putting together the agenda, right? They were at the table. And it's going to make a difference. Let's not forget what happened, a few weeks ago downtown. And it was just like immediately people don't want to give Johnson a chance. Immediately it was like people were misquoting Johnson, saying, you see, he doesn't want to hold young people responsible and blah, 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 and what have you. And that wasn't what was happening. What was happening was that Johnson was acknowledging that young people have to be part of the process, that there has to be options for young people, that he's just not going to become the mayor who's just going to arrest young people and that's going to solve everything, right? And that was really different. Imagine somebody else. What would, and again, I don't want to be petty. We all want to work together, but imagine another mayor, what that person would have said in that situation. And that may have, that, that rhetoric may have let folks in certain neighborhoods feel safer, but it wasn't going to solve the problem. It wasn't going to work towards a solution. And that is why this is so refreshing, because young people are already at the table. And I think we're going to see some really exciting things with young people being stakeholders in their own mind.
Well, you know what? Stay right here, everybody, because I want to get some closing thoughts from you on the other side of the break. But I am Santita Jackson, as we are on our way to the inauguration of Mayor Brandon Johnson, as we have been talking about the accomplishments of Lori Lightfoot. They are many. And we do hope that she will continue in public life, because she, I think, became mayor under the most difficult of circumstances, and she did a fine, fine job. And now he needs us to help him to do a fine, fine job. I want you to remember, as we go into this Mother's Day weekend, what the original intent of the holiday was. The original intention of the holiday was for mothers of all nationalities, races, and backgrounds to call for peace. It was originally Mother's Day, the Mother's Day Proclamation for Peace. She was an abolitionist. She was a woman of peace. She was a feminist. She was a womanist. She was so many things. She was also she also wrote the Battle Hymn of the Republic. At least she wrote the lyrics for that. And she said, after seeing in the Civil War, after watching the Civil War, women need to come together and end war, period, for all time, and we can do it. We can do it. And she said the following: "Arise, women of this day, arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be that of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage, the blood of others," everybody, "for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, patience, and mercy. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor." And on she goes to say, "Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own kind the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and of humanity, I earnestly ask that that a General Congress of Women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects, to promote the alliance of different nationalities, of all women, everybody, the amicable settlement of international questions of great and general interests of peace." That is what Mother's Day is about. That's what this conversation is about. We all have to come together, whatever our backgrounds, to make this city, to make ourselves right, to make this city right, to make this country and this world right, and together we can do it. I'll see you at the inauguration, everybody. Get some closing thoughts on the other side. God bless you, everybody. Happy Mother's Day, and let's bring on this new, great Chicago. I'm Santita Jackson. God bless you, everybody. Okay, let us continue. I want to get some thoughts from everybody before we go, because the question has been raised. What do we do? What do we do? I mean, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, what do? You have been working with young people, please, all of your career. You've been the president of a university. You're now a dean at one of the biggest universities, most prestigious in the country, if not the world. What do we tell our young people to do? They want to do something.
They do want to do something, and I think Pastor, I forgot who made the point earlier about the lack of knowledge, but it was just a report that said only 20% of our young people would pass a history test, only 13% a civics test. Civics is, the whole process of political involvement. We have to take our, as a kid, my mom used to take me to NAACP meetings, to city council meetings, just to sit, and I didn't know what was going on, but you get a gleaning of it. We have to expose our young people to why this political enterprise is so important. It's not a political enterprise in some ways, it's a personal enterprise. So we have to expose our young people. And then we have young people in Chicago, all over the country, who are doing this, like Xavier. We need to lift them up and surround them with wise counsel so that they too can run for office, too can do some of the things that Brandon Johnson is doing. And then thirdly, we have to be literally, we have to have the mayor's back. He's going to make mistakes. We got to know that. But we know that he comes with a solid progressive foundation, and we need to help him to maintain that, even as he deals with the slings and arrows that come from the basic act of governing.
But what about these slings and arrows? I mean, now he's walking into this this crisis with the migrants. I mean, what do you suggest that he do? I mean, that's what you're seeing in Los Angeles. How is Karen Bass handling it? What do you think she can help to advise him to do?
Well, she can certainly help advise him, and she's tackled the homeless problem head on. But I think in terms of the immigration crisis, he's got to make a statement early. He's got to, as Jeanette said, come up with some things to offer. And if these folks are going to be pushed out to farms, he has to make suggestions and work with the governor. If the farms are going to take these people on, they've got to pay them. But he needs to make a strong statement up front, decrying this dumping, this immigrant dumping, and talking about what Chicago can do. You can't ignore it, so we've got to speak to it.
Well, I mean, because they'll call him a failure right early, Kevin Lampy, if he doesn't deal with this head on. Does Alderwoman Dowell have any suggestions about what he can do? Because this is going to be in his lap now.
Absolutely, and my conversations with her Thursday night was, what is the plan? And this is landing at the incoming mayor's doorstep here, waiting for him to demonstrate his ability to lead, which I know he has. But we need, it seems to me we need to convene a group of the social service leaders, real estate business, office-based management, activists in the community, people that work on immigrants' rights on a regular basis, and we need to say, what is our plan? What is the process? When this busload is dumped here, can we, who do we call? What does the rapid response team look like? What is a group of people that can show up with the welcome packet, give them a warm welcome like they're doing this morning? The Institute for Progressive Latino, and I know I can't say it in Spanish, Xavier, forgive me. And it is we need, that's what he needs. He needs to come out strong and say, okay, these are the steps that are going to happen. And it's one of the first things I think he needs to tackle in the first days of administration. Even be looking at it over the weekend is what is going to be the plan, and let's put it in place, because we've got the talent, we've got the resources, we have the ability. It just all needs to be channeled, and we need to be able to make, when this happens, we need a phone call be made, and then everything falls into place.
Well, Xavier, I mean, because he not only has this issue, he's got a whole lot of them. This is a whole lot to take on, Chicago right now, and all of these big cities. I mean, how do you help these young people who have all of the, because they're so idealistic. And Aaron, because that's what my concern is, they're so idealistic. I don't want them to be turned off, because we're coming into really treacherous waters.
Yeah, but a lot of it too. We talk about Lori, and we acknowledge that there's a lot of great stuff that she did, but you have to be able to govern, right? You talk about the personality, whether fair or not, right? And some of the tension that happened because of her personality. I think that what we're going to see, and we're already seeing it. Like we mentioned earlier with the transition team and the chairmanship, we really are seeing somebody who, outside of all the great stuff that we've said, that's willing to compromise. But why? Because Brandon Johnson, in his heart, when you really look deep into him, he is a community organizer, and there's a mindset with community organizers of wanting to work together to get it done. Like, yeah, we're tough, we're gonna fight, we're gonna get this done. But there's something about community organizers and organizing 101 that they understand that at the end of the day, fighting for something and then just to fight, that's not what they're about. Community organizers are about getting things done and understanding that sometimes you got to compromise. And I think that is really one thing that Johnson is going to bring that is really different. And I think because of that, like you talked about young people, are they going to get disappointed after they, get into this fight and they see the reality of things? I actually think there's going to be victory. I actually think things are going to get done because of that willingness to work together, to sometimes meet people halfway, and sometimes you can't, right? With this immigration issue and what's happening right now, some folks, you're just not going to be able to please them. Because at the end of the day, we're talking about human people. We're talking about, just giving people, the decency of being able to just, live and sleep and eat. These folks are being dropped off all over the country. For some folks, they're just not going to agree. But there are things that Johnson's going to be able to negotiate, he's willing to do that. Because of that, we're going to see things get done.
Well, what do you say to Chaparral, who says this? Not only, wait a minute, let me get this back. Okay, not only does he need to address migrant dumping, but homelessness. Chicagoans are not feeling immigrants getting resources and U.S. citizens not. So he needs to tackle both simultaneously. Anyone want to tackle that? Oh, everybody.
Aaron, I think he's committed to doing both. I think he's developing the team that can support him in the way that the city needs, and it's not going to be a solution on day one. I don't think Mayor Johnson's in the habit of making promises he doesn't intend to keep, and I believe that both things can happen at the same time. I think developing that federal network of coalition and his knowledge of how county, state, local, and federal can all work together to accomplish these goals. I believe he will take both of these head on, and I believe he will speak to them. I think both of these things can happen, and the city is ready for solutions. But I think we also need to keep the compassion for all humans that are in need, right? And I think we can all take that lesson in our daily lives, whether that's keeping, volunteering to support our homeless population, or donating items to the migrant families that are coming in with children who don't have proper shoes or strollers and things like that. So I think we can do both things at the same time.
Well, Dwight and everyone here, really, why is it that we, I feel like we're being gamed here. That migrants are getting something that I'm not getting. No one's talking about the resources that the 1% continue to get. They're sucking us dry. I mean, the military contractors, they're sucking us dry. No one's talking about that. That the Pentagon gets money, Dwight, they don't even ask for. But we're mad with these migrants who corporations are pulling in here to do the work. Huh? Help me.
Well, that's why I said that we really can focus on now taxing the rich, and them paying their fair share of taxes. When you got a guy like Ken Griffith, who rather run to Florida than pay taxes, you know that you got a real problem with some of these billionaires who made a ton of money off the prerogatives of poor people, but they're really not reinvested. And so to put a transactional tax at the Board of Exchange, the Board of Trade, or the place where the money is really, really, really made, some of the banking institutions, some of the investment houses, even the nuclear transaction will raise you billions of dollars. What I'm most encouraged by, though, is his commitment to employ some of the young people.
Why? Why is that encouraging to you?
Because they've been left out the equation all these years, and because they were left out of the trades, and because they were left out of, quality education, and because many of them have not had jobs, that you have situations like them running downtown to smash and grab, or them running downtown jumping on cars, twerking, because some of it is out of boredom. Some of it is, many of them have not learned to be responsible. And some just have idle time because they don't have jobs. So I'm very encouraged by his commitment trying to get these kids employed. Not just summer jobs, but, careers, and putting them on career tracks.
So you felt his response to... So, he was heavily criticized for his response to the kids being downtown weeks ago, in which I thought he had a very balanced approach. He said, no, we don't want to encourage bad behavior, but we can't ignore, the what do they say, the riots of the language of the unheard. We can't ignore that either.
Well, historically, what the solution has been to job shortages has been to import people from other countries. If it's a shortage of nurses, you bring in nurses from the Philippines. Mm-hmm. If it's a shortage of doctors, you bring in doctors from India. If it's a shortage of agricultural workers, you bring them in from Mexico. Nobody really has focused on getting minority kids, black, Hispanic, in the job market. They just become wasted. You see them on the corners of every block with nothing to do. And so you don't always have to import the solution to a job crisis. Some of them can be homegrown, and you can develop them in-house. And I think that you really, they can contribute a great deal to society, and a great deal to their families, and a great deal to themselves. But the emphasis has to be off of just using them as part of the prison industrial complex and allowing them to really create jobs for themselves and for legitimate employee opportunities.
Dr. Malvo, what is up with that economic model? Or is it a social and cultural model?
It's a combination of all of those things. The economic model certainly talks about what kind of economy we have, and you keep hearing me refer to predatory capitalism. Mm-hmm. That's what has to be busted. And, I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing around summer jobs, but not just summer jobs, permanent jobs. And to Dwight, the other thing is we import workers when we have labor shortages, but we don't prepare our workforce to fill those labor shortages. The health professions, there are going to be major shortages in the next 5 years. Why are we training our young African-American and other young people? We have all those universities in Chicago, all over the country, but we're not doing what we need to do to get young people, educated so that they can be fully and gainfully employed. So the economic model really talks about the factors of production, but the cultural model is very important as well, as the socio-political model is. We can't. The challenge that Mayor Johnson and all of our mayors faces, you can't just work off one model. All these things are intertwined. And we've experienced a major cultural shock through COVID. I mean, some of the things that people people never thought they'd be staying home and working, or never thought they'd be staying home. It's had impact on many, many economic drivers, our restaurant industry, our hospitality industry. Some of that's coming back, but some of it isn't. If you look at downtown D.C. as an example, where federal workers are now working half weeks as opposed to full weeks, what do you think that's done to the restaurant industry and those workers? So I think we have to look at a multifaceted approach. And again, I think this mayor, by looking at progressive values at the base, is well situated to do it. He's got to get advice. He's got to get people involved. And the people have to insist to be involved. But I think that this is a great time for Chicago.
Well, you know, the headline in the Chicago Sun-Times, Kevin Lampe, is that Brandon Johnson's early appointment suggests he'll be a pragmatic progressive. Brandon Johnson, his senior advisor is Jason Lee, is quoted as saying, being a progressive is not just about saying things, it's about doing things. That's always been essential to Johnson's understanding of how you govern. Why don't you respond to that?
Well, it is, it is one of the hardest things to move from a candidate to office holder. And that transition is difficult. And it now becomes the day when they say you campaign in poetry and you serve in prose.
Yes.
And so it is that transition. And I think all leaders find this when they take on a role that that's brand new to them. The day-to-day, the minute-by-minute obligations and responsibilities hit you so hard and so quickly that you sometimes feel like you can't accomplish all the things that you set out to do. And so there comes the day needs to be divided. Okay, what can I handle today? How can I fulfill the promises I made to people today? And how do I balance the things that are just coming in through the door and I'm drinking from the fire hose? And so that is going to be, now's the time to do the job. And the job is a lot tougher. And the job is the key to doing the job is surrounding yourself with good people and letting them do their jobs and being able to then communicate what you're doing. Let the people know and tell the people the truth and let them know the challenges that you're facing and be honest and straightforward with everyone. And talk to the media on a regular basis, but also get out and visit every ward. I think one of the first things she should do is set a schedule like Carol Washington did and visit every single ward in the city and get out there in every single community, visit every neighborhood, and then sit there and listen to them. And I think that's what's going to be key to him beginning this job and having success so that when his performance review comes up in 4 years, you go, you know what, we want to rehire this person.
Well, Reverend Wilson, what about going to every single ward and every single community? I mean, how should he begin? How should he hit the ground running? What do you think? Is Reverend Wilson still there? She might be gone. Well, Aaron, are you still there?
Here.
Oh, okay. Reverend Wilson?
I'm still here.
Okay, well, y'all, everybody get off mute.
I got to jump off. Santita. Thank you, everyone.
Well, very quickly, give us a closing thought, Aaron. Did Aaron go? She's got to take care of her children. But go on and talk to me. How should he hit the ground running? Well, you saw, you are close with Harold Washington. Oh, my goodness. 40 years ago. Yikes.
I think he's got to convene a blue ribbon committee of stakeholders to deal with the migrant issue. He has enough relationships that helped him to get into office. They need to help him stay in office. And one of the things is convening them for solutions to how do we handle the migrant crisis, because it's going to continue to grow, in my opinion. On the jobs piece, urgently, he needs to convene, that same group needs to look at how do we either hire some of these kids as summer interns, but many of them we just have to provide adult supervised programming across the city. Every one of these youth agencies that are getting money from the city, the county, and the state, as well as faith leaders, need to be convened. And maybe we do what your father suggested a year ago, is a citywide track and field Olympic Games, which includes, add some things like volleyball, easy sports that kids can learn and have fun. Open up these parks, open up these churches, and teach our children how to play without looking at a screen, how to enjoy team sports. I think that's what we're going to have to do. It costs a little bit, but it costs less than what happens when children are in the meantime without adult supervision. Brandon has the power. He has the bully pulpit. He has to use it. He doesn't have to solve the problem. He has to convene people to address the problem.
How should he hit the ground running, Xavier? I mean, how can he? In a proactive way as opposed to just reacting to crises. I think he has to give the not just the impression, but let people know, you know what, I'm going to work through this.
Yeah, I think he's doing it. I think he's doing something that's very unique. Every mayor, they put together their transition team, but it's always an inner circle. And I don't see an inner circle with Brandon. I see an outer circle, right? It's upside down, right? Everybody's involved. And I think that that's something that I got to say I didn't see. I definitely didn't see with Rom. I didn't see it as much with Lori. I just didn't. We didn't see it, and we're seeing it now. And Johnson also has the advantage of learning. Let's not forget, he has the advantage of learning from the mistakes of the past few administrations. Right?
What were those mistakes? But what were those mistakes?
Exactly that. Not engaging folks, being confrontational, understanding that different folks have different opinion, and unfortunately, you're just going to have to work together. Oh, I'll tell you, definitely one. Doing things what they call at the middle of the night, right? And then just making announcements, thinking that your solutions are the best solutions versus hearing the people's solutions. And I don't think Johnson's sitting in a room saying, I have all these great ideas. I think he's sitting in a room saying, look at all these great ideas that the people have. That's really different. It's inverted. And I think that is very unique. And then, of course, we keep on mentioning it, the inclusion of young people. And like I said, being stakeholders and their own problems. And I just want to make a quick comment. Is it me, and I could be wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, is it me, or were there more summer jobs in the 80s and the 90s? I do remember there being more summer jobs there. Like kids were able to get a summer job when they were 13, 14-year-olds. They had the city had all these summer jobs. And I'm sure they have them now. Maybe I'm just out of touch. But, man, it just seemed like there were just more, and we were just talking about, there were more summer jobs. There were just more opportunities in the summer, more things and activities going on. I don't know what happened, but I really hope this administration really looks at that. I just don't know what happened, how some of those things just became less and less. And I really hope, and I heard a lot from folks today that there's just more opportunities. But at the end of the day, a 13, 14-year-old being able to make a few bucks, in the summer makes a really big difference. And I do want to just leave with one quick comment. I know it's quirky. I know I'm feeling a little petty. I didn't have my Puerto Rican coffee this morning, so I might be grumpy. I want to say this. It's really funny. You have a lot of these families, they're sitting home and they're complaining why their box of cereal is now cost $7. Why these fruits and vegetables that used to cost $2 a pound now cost $6 a pound, and yet they want to, be very critical about immigrants, right? And at the same time, they don't want their box of cereal, which will eventually be about $10. Can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, we're being taught to really go after each other. And then also, I will say this to you, Xavier, particularly when, you have with black people who would be naturally allied. There's an old song by the Staple Singers that I heard when I was in Ghana. I was about 7. When will we be paid for the work we've done? Black people have been so abused in this society. And the indigenous people have been more abused than that. And when you see, there is the impression that, we're bringing other people in who in a generation or two will be white people and who will be allied against us. And we have got to face all of these issues head on if we're going to get anywhere, Xavier, and Kevin, who's got to run. We've got to do that. Because we're fighting each other, and the same entities that brought us all over here on basically a slave project, so that the monarchs could exchange places, so the oligarchs could exchange places with the monarchs. We just had a coronation last week. Does anybody not get that? He is the largest landowner on earth, King Charles. Same people who were in charge 400 years ago are in charge today. Y'all, Kevin, I know you got to go.
So, we understand and we talk about the challenges that we're facing, and I'm going to talk about, on Monday, when the mayor takes this oath, it's the dawn of a new day, and each day provides us the opportunity to live better than the day before, and to have hope for the day tomorrow. And so we are now in this moment where we need to come together. We need to set our agenda, and then we need to get to work. And it is our opportunity that is being given to us to make a difference in this world, and our responsibility is to seize that and do something about it.
And we can. I mean, the time is now. The time is now. We can do something about this. Well, I'm going to close. We're going to close everything out. Dwight, you have any final? I don't know who is still here. Kevin has just left. Xavier's had to go. Reverend Wilson, Aaron had to leave. Dr. Malvo, you still here?
I'm still here.
Okay, I'm going to let.
My last statement.
Well, hold on. Let me give you this last. Let you speak, Dwight, and then Dr. Malvo, you will close us out. Dwight.
Okay.
When the Ukrainians came over, we saw it as an economic opportunity. But we look at the migrants as a crisis. Something inconsistent about that. And I don't know how much it has to do with racism. I don't know if it has to do with perspective. I don't know much it has to do with just basic, xenophobia. But I think that this can be an opportunity to integrate a whole other segment of society at a time we need the labor force. We need the help. We have all these seniors in these seniors' homes who need basic help going to the bathroom and going shopping and putting on their clothes. And we need a labor force that can do that. That can be an opportunity. We need some workers. We have to redesign our whole infrastructure. We need workers for that. People who are not afraid to get down and dirty and get in the mud, and who comes out of that kind of background of having worked in the fields. That's an opportunity that we can take full advantage of. It's really a matter of perspective, whether you see this as a crisis or an opportunity. It's interesting when it involves white people, I always see it as an opportunity. When it involves people of color, we always see it as a crisis.
Dr. Julianne Malveaux.
Chicago is at the cusp of doing really great things, and I'm excited for the possibilities and the opportunities. But the fact is that when we talk about immigrant workers, we got to talk about paying. You're going to have black-brown conflict or, native and immigrant conflict unless you make sure that everyone who's working is paid well. We saw after Katrina some of the injustices as the union workers were paid more, of course, than the non-union workers, and immigrant workers are paid almost nothing. That's something that has to be avoided in Chicago. It is a great moment, opportunity to look at education, to look at the educational enterprise and pipeline, and to look at where our immigrant brothers and sisters will fit into the Chicago economy. And when I say fit into, it really means the possibility of restructuring the economy. With Brandon Johnson's leadership, I think that Chicago could be a model for the rest of the nation in terms of how we infuse progressive values and fiscal responsibility at the same time.
Well, I think that we can do it if we have the mind to do it. And everybody, let us fight for one another, not with one another. Let us all come together and go to these city council meetings, go to Washington, go to Springfield, go to Madison, Wisconsin, go where the Lord sends us, and that is everywhere, so that we can make this government be of, for, and by us. That's what it is. It really is. We just don't quite believe it yet. But I promise you, when we come together and when we are of the right mind, we have a war on poverty. And we start winning it. But when we falter, then we go into war. And we drop the war on poverty. We drop the Great Society, the war on poverty, Great Society. Remember, they were joined together. And then we get a war. And we throw all of that out the window. That's why you need to have debates on the Republican and Democratic side as we move into this season. Don't let anyone tell you any different. If you believe in the Republic, if you believe in democracy, you want debates. You want people to run. You should not be a wealthy person to run for president. You shouldn't have to raise $1 billion. They should be publicly funded campaigns, I think, at every single level, so that we can just disabuse people of the need to raise money. That's unfair to put public servants in that position. But everybody, you need to get involved. Last year, this time, most Chicagoans did not know Brandon Johnson's name. He had a 1 or 2% name recognition. And now he's the mayor because people got a chance to hear him. You know what they did, Reverend Wilson, Dr. Malveaux, and Dwight McKee? Because we had debates. And when people heard him, they said, ooh, wait a minute. That's what happened 4 years ago with Lori Lightfoot. When we saw her in the debates, we said, ooh, wait a minute. I've never heard of her before, but she makes good sense to me. We need debates. We need discussions. And you need to be in the audience and you need to be involved. Do not defame CNN because they gave Trump a platform. Biden needs a platform, and so does Robert Kennedy, so does Marianne Williamson, and so do the other candidates who are running for the Republican nomination. Give them all a platform. Enough. If you don't want to look at the television, don't look at it. If you don't want to vote for them, don't vote for them. And don't cut other people's opportunities off. And if you're going to participate in this voting process, you need to hear everybody. Because somebody you might not like might have a good idea. Let us grow up in our politics, everybody. Grow up in your politics. That's what we need to do. So I'm sending you much, much love. Get involved. Everybody get involved. Get involved. This is a great day. Congratulations, Mayor-elect, soon-to-be Mayor Brandon Johnson. Congratulations and thank you, Mayor Lori Lightfoot, for your service. I don't want you to stop serving. We need your voice. We need your experience. We need someone, Dr. Malveaux, who was a federal prosecutor, who would take off her badge and go see her brother in prison. Huh? She did that. She made Chicago more accessible to more people. She did that. Don't take that away from her. She made mistakes like everybody did. In tone and temper, all of that. We all do that. We all have a day that we say, I wish I could have done that better. In fact, now that I know better, I would do it better. Give her a break. The break that you're going to need one day yourself. And thank her for her service. The times that we were calling upon her were times that she couldn't be with her wife and their daughter. Thank her for her service. And let us support Mayor Brandon Johnson, his wife, his children, the alders, their wives, partners, and children. Anyone who wants to serve, let us support them as they support us and work for us. I love you, everybody. God bless you. All right, let's get right to it, everybody. Let's be about the business of making Chicago great. The city of big shoulders can support us all. It can do that, everybody. I love you. God bless you. On to the inauguration. Check us out on WCPT. We'll be playing it today right here. And we'll be talking about it for the rest of the week, and then we'll be about it. Because now we've got work to do. Now the real work begins. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Thank you, panel. Thank you, audience. I love you, Robert. I love you. And happy, happy, happy Mother's Day for peace. Mother's Day for peace. We shouldn't send our children to war to unlearn all of the wonderful things that we've taught them. Don't do it. I don't want to hug another man who is reeking with carnage, the blood and gore of someone else, on their person, whether it's a man or a woman, or whether it's in their hearts. There's something called moral injury, everybody. We've got to stop this. We've got to, as my grandmother Gertrude said, I don't want you to do better. I want you to do right. As my Uncle Mickey said when he was in the hospital, when the doctor said, we want to make you better, he said, then I can leave right now. Dwight, he sure did say it. He said, because I don't want to be better, I want to be well. And if you can't get me well, I'll go home and work it out for myself. I love you, everybody. God bless you. Have a great one. Let's get to the inauguration. God bless.